To further discuss the eviction crisis going on around the country and here in Detroit, we are joined by Jennifer Bentley, the executive director of Michigan State Bar Foundation, which provides funding to agencies across the state, which in return helps those facing eviction. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So just how serious is this issue going on locally right now?
So the eviction problem in the state has increased. The legal aid programs that we fund, the grantees that we fund to handle eviction cases, have seen an increase. Last year, throughout the state, the legal aid programs handled about 57,000 cases, and about 55% of those were eviction cases, which is an increase from prior years.
Do you know why that we have seen such an increase like that? Are you seeing a pattern anywhere? Is it the pandemic? Is it directly correlated to that?
You know, there's a lot of great studies and data about what is involved in the eviction crisis: affordable housing, economic equality issues, people don't have income, rent affordability, really families struggling with income and affordable housing.
Sure, we've seen this domino effect since the pandemic, people losing their homes, talking about then inflation and the rise of the mortgage rates and the cost of housing. It is a 1, 2, 3 almost punch to the gut for some people that are going through a difficult time.
Definitely. And the legal aid programs throughout the state are helping families and have been helping families for a long time, but the amount of work that is focused on eviction has increased, and part of that is because we've been able to provide increased funding to them since 2020 to handle eviction cases. And they've really been able to see a success when they're able to help families facing evictions. I think it's a win-win to have an attorney representing a tenant. They can negotiate settlements on behalf of the tenant with the landlord. But really, housing stability is such a huge thing. And evictions, someone that's evicted from their home can spiral with a lot of other issues. And so having an attorney available to assist them is crucial.
You're in a situation like that perhaps because you don't have the money, right? And so if you do not have the ability to obtain a lawyer, where do you go from there?
That's where the legal aid organizations come in. So there's no constitutional right to counsel in a civil case. So there are legal aid organizations throughout the state and throughout the country that provide free civil legal services to low-income households every year. And you know, the civil courts, the cases that civil courts handle, really, I mean, they're things that can have a life-altering effect on a family: losing your home, debt collection cases, expungements, losing custody of your kids. All those things happen in civil court. And so the legal aid organizations are available. They do not have enough resources to help everyone that qualifies and needs assistance. I've been the director at the Bar Foundation for 7 years, and prior to that I was a legal aid lawyer for 20 years, and really saw the need and the families that needed help with the court process. They were being evicted, their homes were being foreclosed, and I knew that if we could provide an attorney for them, we could make a meaningful difference in their life. And the outcomes that the legal aid programs can achieve, last year the success rate on housing cases when a legal aid attorney was involved was 98%.
Wow. And when you talk about trying to help those families that are going through perhaps the worst moment of their lives, what do you see from those people that are going through that? I mean, it's not necessarily a bad person or a bad family. They just have hit and fallen on tough times.
Exactly. We had one of our grantees last year helped. Here's a story, and we have thousands of great stories where legal aid helped stabilize housing for families. But a single dad came into a legal aid program and was losing his house. He was purchasing a house on land contract, and he had equity in the home. It was a high interest rate loan, though. He was paying a high interest rate, and they took him to court to take his home back. So he was looking at losing his house, all the equity he had in it. He contacted legal aid. Legal aid was able to help him save his home, and was also able to help him find an agency to refinance his loan with a lower interest so that it was affordable and he could stay in the home he had worked to build up equity in.
Sure. Yeah, and it's obviously you talk about everything we're discussing here. It can be complicated. It's not very cut and dry, and to know
Right.
the ins and outs of the system and where to go for help. You mentioned having a lawyer is key. Let's talk about your foundation and what you do specifically to help those in need that are facing an eviction crisis.
Yeah, so the foundation funds provides annual funding to 10 legal aid organizations around the state. And we also partner with others like the court and the State Bar of Michigan and community organizations to really think through ways to help the most families we can. So we view our mission both in terms of investing in civil legal aid, providing funding to these grantees, but also providing leadership and figuring out ways to make the process more efficient, to help more people, to partner with law firms that do a lot of pro bono work for clients. In addition to the eviction cases that legal aid handles, they also do a lot that really helps with economic stability so that people can pay their rent or keep their house, like expungements, getting people an expungement so they can remove barriers to employment or other things, really changing the trajectory of someone's life so that they have the means to support themselves. And then the legal aid programs also help, like in unemployment cases, which also increased during the pandemic, and family domestic violence cases. And all those things really have an effect on housing stability.
Where does the funding specifically come from?
So the legal services, legal aid programs in Michigan, about 25% of their funding comes from the Legal Services Corporation, which is federal funding, and about 25% of their funding comes from the Bar Foundation. And our sources of revenue, we administer what's called the interest on lawyer trust accounts in Michigan. So lawyers pool money into trust accounts, and that interest comes to the foundation to give out in grants. We also administer the Access to Justice campaign. The legal community provides financial support to programs. We also have grants from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan State Housing Development Authority that we give out in grants to legal aid programs.
Well, stay with us. We continue this conversation after the break with Jennifer. Welcome back. We continue to dive into Michigan's eviction crisis. During the pandemic, more than $46 billion of federal relief was provided for rental assistance and housing stability. Well, Jennifer Bentley, the executive director of the Michigan State Bar Foundation, she's back with us at this hour, and your foundation helps distribute funding to these legal aid clinics. Jennifer, we've seen a lot since the pandemic. We talked about it in the earlier part of this segment of everything going into a domino effect, in a sense, everything going on. Are you seeing it in certain communities, for example, the elderly, people of color, veterans? Do you see that those communities are perhaps impacted the most?
Yeah, there is certainly a disparate impact on people of color in terms of the eviction crisis, and also just, vulnerable families that are having economic problems, experiencing housing stability. And I think that the eviction crisis and the assistance provided to families over the course since 2020, having rental assistance available to help people, and also having legal aid programs available. So working together to help households facing eviction has really been beneficial, because people, if they're temporarily laid off a job or lose employment, or were unable to work during the pandemic, or were waiting for pandemic unemployment benefits, they might have gotten behind on rent. And so having that rental assistance available was really crucial.
In your role and your time doing this, have you seen an increase in the requests for funding?
So the legal aid programs can't meet the need that they currently have. So they are always hoping and working to get more funding. So legal aid programs have to turn away about 1 in every 2 person that applies for assistance and qualifies.
So what's the answer here? What is the answer for somebody going through a situation like this, that is facing eviction, that is going through an awful time?
So legal aid is able to help a lot of people, and if legal aid can help, that's great. There's also a lot of courts trying to change processes and trying to make the process more fair and equitable for tenants, and figuring out how to provide more assistance to tenants. So in addition, there's resources. There's legal aid programs in Michigan utilize a 1-800 number, a counsel and advocacy law line for intake where people can get advice. And also Michigan Legal Help is a website that provides information about your rights if you're facing an eviction. And that's a free website that people can get a lot of information about their legal rights and what to do if they are sued in a variety of matters.
Have you seen a situation where a family, you talked about the single father, or any other family that has gone through a situation like this, and you have worked with them, and now years later they've come out on the other side and they're doing well and they're back on their feet?
Yeah, we actually, I'm thinking of a few stories, but a few weeks ago the foundation received a donation from someone who said that they were a former client about 25 years ago of a legal aid program, and they always promised themselves that they would pay it forward once they were stable and able to do so, and talked about the meaningful difference that legal aid had made for them, that they were able to stay in their home, they were able to obtain good employment in the future, and then they made a donation and just wrote a very heartfelt letter about how important the services that were provided were to them.
That is such an amazing story, because you're paying it forward, and you saw in perhaps the worst time of your life, going through a difficult situation, you get some help, and now you're trying to help a family that maybe you don't know, that you don't know that is suffering, that is going through a difficult time, is very special.
Exactly. Yeah, it was nice to receive.
So how can people get legal aid from a foundation grantee if needed?
So Michigan Legal Help, the website, has a triage and referral system where you can put in what legal issue you have, and it will suggest resources for you. That might be sending you to the local legal aid office, providing court forms. It has a whole process. It's called a guide to legal help, where you can answer some questions, and then it will send you or give you information. If you're not able to navigate that system, we also have a 1-800 number that the foundation funds, and all of the legal aid programs partner with the counsel and advocacy law line to get help with the intakes and give advice, and then referrals for cases.
As we wrap this up, and you look at the overall picture, as we talk about the housing crisis and the eviction issues going on in the country, and of course here in Metro Detroit, do you see a simple solution at all? Do you see a solution to this, to helping solve this and get these numbers down?
So I do think affordable housing is a big thing, but there's a lot of stakeholders trying to work together and think through ideas about how to provide more services to families and how to make the civil justice system easier for people to navigate, because we're never going to have enough lawyers to represent everyone that qualifies and needs assistance that is low income. And we're trying to increase resources to help more people, but we also are trying to figure out ways to improve the system overall so that it's easier to navigate.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us tonight to shed some light on the housing crisis going on here in the country and, of course, in the Metro Detroit area. We want to thank Jennifer Bentley, the Executive Director of the Michigan State Bar Foundation, for joining us tonight.